Hi everyone. This is our third series in our TED webinar, TED Dialogue webinar. So hope you're going to enjoy our third one in the series. We've had some great speakers before looking at homes for young people and spaces for young people. So those are all online as well. So if you want to look at those, we have one line, one tube line, YouTube, sorry, not tube line, is TET dash Archi TV. Otherwise, you can see it on our website. So we're having, after this, we're going to have a pause. We've had three great webinars, but we're going to have a pause in the summer. We'll be coming back in the autumn. But in the meantime, we are partnering with London Festival of Architecture to do a actual in-person event on the 22nd of June. So this is actually going to be talking about finding a common language, and we'll have something like 6 speakers at this event. So hope you can join us. That it's not up there at the moment, so if you want to look at it, just keep an eye on London Festival of Architecture. It will be a Petticuccia style as well, so the whole point is just to get some ideas and what's been happening around this language. So today is back to our webinar, Steaming Ahead, Working Across Disciplines in Creative Learning. And you can see the various speakers here, but what I'll do is now pass over to Neil, who will take us through the webinar. So over to you, Neil.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to such a distinguished panel here today, this afternoon. We got Heba, Tabidi, basically Chris Wise, and we've also got Dewell. First of all, I'd like to just do a bit of good housekeeping here. The event, we just want to remind everyone that it's been recorded and it will be distributed and published on YouTube in a few days' time. We do invite the audience to participate by asking questions, and you could do that in the little chat box down there. And the speakers are going to give each a short presentation of their absolutely fantastic engaging work that they do with young people and beyond. This subject is passionate to my heart, and it's about we're trying to bring engineering, architecture, and to young people, and to basically get them to understand what it means to be in this sort of creative world. What's the link between these disciplines can be explored and developed now. Engaging in creative learning. How can we support the curriculum teachings in school, which is a big ask? What fresh perspectives can we build through exploring the intersection between engineering and art, design, architecture, and the other disciplines? How can we help challenging the perceived ideas behind these sort of some of these traditional subjects? How can professionals bring a new perspective to bear in terms of a wider policies and industry and practices? How can they help support ambition to create more inclusive, sustainable, and equitable? Equitable, I think, is the operative word there. What do engineers see as priorities in social value strategies? How can young people view about the built environment be meaningfully incorporated into citywide level? Right, so what we're going to do, we're going to kick off today's procedure with Dewell, basically highlighting Civic engineer approach to working with young people in creative engagement and learning, and how these fit within the practices of the industry, overall strategies and priorities in social, economical, and environmental sustainability. Kat, here, take it from here.
Thank you. Right, I'll just share my screen. Okay. So just to give a little bit of context, here we are. So we're very much about the fusion between the built environment and green space, which is quite simply shown in this Venn diagram here. And in terms of our ethos, a picture paints 1,000 words. And we often talk about engineering being not backed up by science. And that's very much what we do in all of our day-to-day operations. Our engineers and technicians are really encouraged to focus on the quality of their sketches and drawings. It's not just about calculations and analysis. And that's something that we really try to get across, that drawing is really important and it's a really good way of communicating the different design processes. So in terms of our approach with young people, we focus very much on challenging perceptions. So engineering is often viewed as unfamiliar, complicated, and quite boring and traditional, when actually you break it down and you really engage young people in the fact that engineers can solve problems, they connect people, they improve places and spaces, they protect our resources, which is something that's really important in today's environment, and they find new solutions. So inviting young people to notice everything in the environment that has been engineered and that they've already participated in engineering throughout the games they play through childhood. So Lego, Meccano, Minecraft, they're all the basis of engineering, and these are things that they really enjoy. So we really try to encourage them to think about the spaces around them and what has been engineered, and it really opens their eyes to see that it is quite familiar to them and it's not as distant as they thought. So in terms of how we engage with young people, there's a number of things that we do. So we offer work experience opportunities in all 4 of our studios, and we make those really important parts of their placement with us. So it's getting them involved in real projects and getting them problem solving, test projects, research, getting involved in drawing, taking them on site and seeing actual things that we have created. Internships and placements is something that we do as well. So they are part of the team from day one and they're actively involved in projects. So they learn some real skills and really understand what it is to be an engineer. We offer apprenticeships as well, another route in to engineering. We work with charities and educational establishments to offer apprenticeships. We do mentoring with different schools, colleges and links there. We do school visits to really engage with children really early on, so right through from Key Stage 1 up to universities, trying to inspire that next generation. We've worked with schools to advise them on their curriculum and give some feedback and review some of the children's work. We try to storytell career journeys, so really talk about the different career paths that people have taken so that it's really accessible for everyone, that engineering can be a career for all. We provide role models, so someone who they can actually relate to and see themselves following that career path. And sharing projects, so talking through some of our projects that really capture and inspire. And parks are a real prime example of landscape architecture, working together with engineering to produce something that's really familiar. Sustainable projects as well that we've been involved in that really they can see the impact that they can have on the world around them, such as the Climate Innovation District that really just capture hearts and minds. One of our design engineers recently worked with a group of children to design a playground and creating that fun element and something that they really are interested in. We've supported a number of initiatives as well. So we've been part of the Greater Manchester Engineering Challenge for a number of years, which is designed around encouraging young people from 7 to 14 years of age to improve STEM skills and look at the state of engineering in schools. And we've learned a lot from the way children approach tasks. So it's been a two-way thing. So for instance, we set a task to design a community space which was sustainable and incorporated feelings of well-being. And the children were invited to consider their local town and think about things that they would include. And one group came up with the idea to create a house of memories to aid the well-being of older people living in the community. And it was something really simple, but really effective. And they just gave a whole new slant of thinking about the community and the impact that they could have. We are working with Regeneration Brainery as well, which is an industry initiative. And it's an academy for brilliant young minds aged 14 to 21 years old, all from very diverse backgrounds. And we're supporting them to go to industry events to learn from those events and really see what life as an engineer is about. So we're supporting them to go to UK Reef, which is coming up shortly as well. And in terms of our practices, we really look to break down barriers and create diverse teams within our practice. And we want engineering careers to be an opportunity for all and not just a select few. We want our young people to be passionate about engineering, have that sustainability focus and create a lasting legacy. So something they're really proud of that they've created. And we're really strategic about projects that we get involved in. And we involve communities from the outset. And young people's views are really important in helping us shape the solution in our project scopes. And if you look at recruitment, we're really serious about looking where we advertise. And so opening that opportunity for all and how we advertise, the use of language, you look at gender bias as one example of screening the text that we put through, and constantly looking at the selection process to make sure that it is inclusive for all. We really look at developing the young people within our business as well. So making sure that we have a graduate academy that they can learn from. We have a Civic Engineers Academy where they are able to deliver training themselves to share knowledge with people across the practice. We look at drawing skills and have workshops around that in building that area of their skill set. We have a diversity and inclusion network, which is open to everyone within the practice. And that's really looking at an opportunity for us to challenge what we do, how we do it, to make sure that we're doing everything we can do to encourage people to be themselves at work and allow that opportunity to be themselves. And part of that, we look at different events on the diversity calendar, but it's also looking at how we can encourage and inspire that next generation from all different backgrounds into engineering. We also have labs. So we've broken down our business into 5 key areas, and everyone within the practice is involved in one particular lab. So it may be people, and they will look at the people operations. So it's extending their skill set to have a holistic view and be really part of shaping the business and the strategy. We offer volunteering leave, and a number of our engineers are really passionate about being a STEM ambassador. We offer volunteering leave in the UK and abroad if it's linked to a recognised registered charity. And it's giving people that opportunity to take that time to give something back to their community and to work with schools and colleges and to do that STEM ambassador work. And it is very much about the people and the culture and living by our values. And part of what we're building up on now is our civic conscience. And you won't be able to see that, but basically there's 3 key areas to our conscience. So it's that moral compass, and it's broken down into planet, people, and purpose. And this is something that we're truly going to live by. And we're building metrics so we can measure and actually hold ourselves accountable to that in making sure that we continually improve. And we're looking at ensuring that we are being the best that we can be and being able to inspire that next generation.
Thank you very much, Kat. That was absolutely fantastic. I could see so many synergies in the educational world that I'm in anyway. And I'm sure we're going to explore those later on. But without further ado, what we'll do, we'll move on, because each, I was going to say each contestant, but each participant has got 8 minutes each. So Heba, it's your turn. Thank you very much, Kat, again.
Cool. Hi everyone. My name is Heba, and I think, I think I'm going to speak from my own experience because I'm kind of fresh out of education and establishing myself, and I kind of see this as a presentation I wish I had when I was starting out in my engineering career. So yeah, I'm a structural engineer, but from a very, very young age, I was also always very multifaceted. I'm also a writer, and I'm also a DJ as well, which is something that's picked up immensely over the past year or so. And I think that multifaceted aspect of myself is really lent to my engineering skills. And it's one of the main reasons why I decided to go and study at the University of Bath, because it was one of the few institutions that had a joint civil and architectural degree course, which was fantastic because I was able to have kind of like studio projects, but also obviously all the traditional engineering modules. And it means I find it very easy to kind of pivot between the architectural like concept and language and the engineering at concept design stage, which means it's great to be able to think about optimization and sustainability and efficiency and structural honesty very early on. And this is one of the first projects that really resonated with me whilst I was at uni. It was a bridge. The task was to design a bridge in Poplar. And the reason it was really significant is because it was the first time I saw something that was, like exciting in terms of engineering and architecture, but within a community that really resonated with me. So if you know of Poplar, it's got a huge South Asian community, and it's very similar to the kind of spaces I grew up in. But I never really saw spaces, buildings, structures that were, I think, exciting, innovative. I never really saw that for people that looked like me. So this project was something that kind of really, it was really impactful for me. So I guess what was always underlying for me is this lack of diversity within the industry. And obviously in 2020, there was kind of the resurgence of the anti-racist movement. But what that really people had talking about was the lack of diversity within demographics, which is true. But I think what's important for us all to consider is what can happen beyond that, and the impact of diversity beyond just having a diverse group of people around the table. What happens when you allow those people to bring all of their selves to the table, and what the impact of that can be. So the first is innovation. So a project that I did again during my time at uni was look at Francis Carey's school in Gando, and he uses in a lot of his work a space truss to lift the corrugated steel above the structure for ventilation. And what I decided to do was create a grasshopper script that used, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with Grasshopper. It's a parametric software, and I use a structural analysis plugin to basically take the space truss and optimize it. And the idea was, given any site, if he was to repeat this project in any other plot with any diameter, and was constrained with a particular steel rebar diameter, what was the optimal arrangement for the space truss? And I used a kind of an element called Galapagos, and it lets you optimize them based on fixed parameters. And yeah, that was, a project that I was able to do because I had the space and the opportunity and the trust and the confidence to be able to innovate, which was really powerful. I think the next thing that diversity can give people is exploration. And this is another project I did where we were asked to take a process in nature and use it to inspire an architectural installation. So I looked specifically at trees and how trees actually add material to points of higher stress on a cellular level. And that's something that continues to happen throughout the life of a tree. And I wanted to create this steel I-beam that basically added material to either the flange or the web based on the maximum bending moment and shear forces. And it was just this crazy conceptual idea that people would walk along this beam, and the elements would kind of rotate and add material to either the web or the flanges. And I did loads of tests, and I modeled things, and I modeled it in Rhino, and I rendered it, and then I got a Arduino and got a sensor and decided to automate it and link it to my computer. And it was you know, it was completely conceptual, but again, it was that space to explore and the opportunity to explore, and also the safety to explore and not be afraid to come up with ridiculous ideas, and having really, really supportive tutors. And the final one is imagination. Now, this isn't my work necessarily, but it's my colleague's work, which I think is incredibly impressive. Her background's in architecture, but she explores Afrofuturism, but specifically in the Afro-Arab region. And her kind of work is a response to the lack of references in the Global South, particularly contemporary architecture from the Global South, and the impact that has on a lot of the kind of new developments that we're kind of seeing there, and the lack of kind of social and environmental like sensitivity to their context. And her work is really, really beautiful. But she uses collage and 3D modeling to create these alternative Afrofuturistic spaces. And those are kind of the three main principles that kind of founded Space Black, which is the design studio that I run. And our ethos is looking at creative alternative spatial futures for marginalized communities. And we kind of do that through three main avenues. Again, from our experience, we kind of feel like these are the most effective ways, and that's through education, concept design and research, and through culture. And this is just a quick diagram of all of the collaborators, cultural institutions, design studios. We've worked with IKEA's Research Lab, Space 10. We've got a residency with a Ghana-based radio station. And this is only growing as well, which is really, really exciting. And my final slide is just a collage of all of the work we've done so far. And I think what really stands out is the joy, the excitement, the imagination, the innovation, the exploration that you see in the stuff that we do, and just this opportunity where young people can bring their whole selves and celebrate their identities, and use that as a vessel for their engineering, for their architecture, for their creativity. So yeah.
Heba, thank you very much. I see quite a lot of synergies in there with me. First of all, you are a DJ. I was a DJ. So I'm hoping we can spin the decks, or whatever you call the musical turntables of today at some point in our lives together. And can I just draw everyone back to this word about diversity and stuff? Just a quick one. I refer to not the global South or a region. We are the global majority. We represent 80 to 85% of the world's population. And using words like marginalized, to me, just puts us in a negative mindset. So if we could start to re-establish the narratives with our own being, I think then we start to move ahead much faster. Right, now we're on to the fantastic Chris Wise. So Chris, I worked with, I worked with him because he came into my school many years ago, and it was unbelievable lecture that he did. And it was about a plank of wood, and we were trying to remember what the end product of this plank of wood was. But without further ado, Chris Wise, here you go.
Okay, thank you. I can't. Yeah, you can do a lot of things with a plank of wood, basically. I'm gonna just crack on. Where's my share screen? Sorry, apologies. Can you all see that? Yes, I'm screen sharing, it says. Right, okay. So this is called STEAMer. Science, technology, engineering, art, maths, and regenerative design as a creative force. And I'm going to, if you don't know what regenerative design is, I'm going to talk briefly about it, but it's just a way of, hang on, my screen won't go forward. Oh, come on. Wait a sec. Sorry, Neil, I've got it's completely hung. Why has it done that?
No problem. Do you want me to ad lib while you are?
Yeah, for some reason, my screen I can't even escape. Hold on. Yeah, ad lib for a second. Apologies, I'll start again in a sec.
All right. Basically, it's quite interesting that you chose STEAM because for a lot of schools, they've dropped the A, so they call it STEM. So the science, technology, engineering, they drop the A and then do the math. And hopefully we could reconnect to them and re-educate them about regenerative design. You ready?
No, it still won't. Oh, for God's sake. I have no idea what's going on here. It is. It should.
Sometimes it helps if you just close it down.
Yeah, I did do that. Yes. The worst comes to the worst. It's something to do with the full screen. Anyway, let me try again. Right. Let me try. Go. Hooray. Okay, right. Sorry. Start again. Apologies. So R for regenerative design, which is something that I'm trying to help the University of Bath embed in its university program, because it's quite important. But I put a few things up. It's great. I'm not a DJ, but I do rubbish abstract paintings. So here's one of them. I do play the guitar, and I have been for years and years and years. And the reason for mentioning these is these are things which get all chucked into what you do in your day job as an engineer, if you're actually working as it. And I write music as well. So this is a requiem for the Queen after she died. So I'm never going to play it to anybody, but anyway, I do that for my own. So it's the satisfaction of being able to do this stuff is fantastic, and I think it all your whole life experience goes into what you do. And I think people tend to think of engineering as very specialized, and you have to learn it all at university, or it's all about mathematics. But actually, it's about life, really. And the mathematics and the technology is just something which gives you a little bit of extra knowledge, but actually, you're just trying to make life better. So R is for regenerative design. What is it? Because a lot of professional designers are now trying to do regenerative design as part of their day job, and it goes beyond sustainability. And Michael Paulin and Sarah Ichioka wrote a very nice book called Flourish, which talks about regenerative design. But fundamentally, what it says is everything's connected. Human beings and nature are connected together, and we are all in it together on this planet. We can't avoid that problem. Doesn't matter which country you're in, which political party you are, we're all here together. Materials, energy, users, the stuff we make, the ecosystems of the planet, it's all tied together. And, you know, there's some obvious things. So if you're a designer or an engineer, you can do stuff which does join people together. For example, the Millennium Bridge, which I did years ago with Norman Foster and Anthony Caro. But these are done as little tiny studies of the river goes through. It's that black strip in the middle there. The river goes through, and the left-hand side shows London before the Millennium Bridge was constructed, and the right-hand side shows the connections in London after the Millennium Bridge was constructed, and you can see that they basically increase. So by putting in one little bridge, you suddenly make it easy for people to get across and communicate with each other. And it's actually at that time, the very rich city of London with Southwark that wasn't quite so rich. And it helped to grow. It was a bit of a leveling up project. You know, nowadays we would call it that. And during its life, it's going to have roughly 1 billion people go across it. So, you know, this is, that's a lot of connections that we've made by just making that one project, which is fantastic. So I mentioned regenerative design. It's beyond sustainable. It's basically net positive. And one thing that people at school at the moment and people in university and people in practice need to get much better at is joining stuff together. And there are lots and lots of specialists, but they're not necessarily very well connected to what the world actually needs. And on the right-hand side of this slide is a little sort of linked up diagram between the specialists and what the world needs. And those people in the middle who join everything together, we haven't got enough of those. We call them specialist generalists, but they're people who are interested in lots of stuff and like linking it all together. So what do you do at university and beyond? Well, universities are obliged by their professional institutions to follow the guidance of their what are called their accrediting bodies. And in that guidance, it talks about when you're an engineering student, you have to study environment, economics, politics, interdisciplinary design, like being a specialist generalist, global issues, social justice, ethics, environmental justice, a whole bunch of stuff which you would say has nothing to do with the technology of engineering, but actually it's central to whether or not engineering is any use. A bit as Kat was saying. Who needs to be in the room? The sort of traditional engineers and scientists are really not the people who are necessarily the most important, and certainly can't do this on their own. And we ran an event at the V&A with a bunch of young designers and young scientists last year. And one of the feedbacks from that was conceivably the net could be cast much wider to involve the voices that were missing. So not the engineers and the designers or the scientists, but lawmakers, lawbreakers, politicians, activists, bankers, bakers. And, you know, the suggestion was made that we should be allowing children and teenagers to write the brief for the rest of us so that we all pay service to the future that's going to play out when we're dead and gone. And I'm obviously much older than anybody else here. So, you know, it's going to happen to me sooner. So that sort of thing about the sense of responsibility is really important. How do you get people just into the space where they think this is fantastic? You know, we can actually do stuff. We've, as an example, we've just done a little project for the 300th anniversary of Christopher Wren's death, reconstructing the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral inside a church at St. Sepulchre's with A-level students from all over the city of London. Some relatively sort of well-heeled, some actually quite disadvantaged schools, and they all came together, and it was just, we had a fantastic day making this dome, a bit smaller than the real one, 3 domes, one inside the other, out of foam bricks, the sort of things you have when you're kids, but there were 2,500 bricks, so it took a bit of organizing. So all about organization, teamwork, sort of understanding a bit about practicality, whether things work or don't work. We put a lantern on the top. I mean, that was an amazing day for everyone. The Bishop of London came to say, well done, Bishop Sarah. She's quite a scary lady. Bath Uni, we have done a little project which is sort of, typically when you go to university, you make stuff, a bit like that dome project, but a bit more, supposed to be a bit more technological. This year, what we did was we took a bunch of stuff that came from the recycling yard at the back of Bath Uni and made the projects out of that. So this is waste material, all made out of waste material. What was really interesting is that everybody just tackled it as if it was brand new, fresh stuff that you'd bought from the, you know, the latest material from the latest place, and still made these fantastic things, even though it was made out of stuff that people had actually thrown away, which was a really good sort of lesson. So one of the things about regenerative design is designing for possibility to enable the future and not disable it. So meaning people who come after us, who we've never met, we don't know what the world's going to be like, can actually do something with what we've designed, and they can make it their own in 50 years time or 100 years time. So you can take old sites. This is with Renzo Piano. When I was in Athens, you can take old sites that are run down, you can make them into new places. So we turned it into this whole thing got turned into a park. This is looking down from the air, with a library and for a national library for everyone, and an opera house, It's got a new canal. It's got amazing new gardens. This is the opening day, just thousands and thousands of people participating. These are the gardens, which are all Mediterranean local species. So you can encourage biodiversity and get the bumblebees flourishing again in Athens. You can do stuff at a neighborhood level, so you can get together groups of people who normally wouldn't talk to each other. This happens to be at South Kensington that we're working on at the moment, but the royal parks, all the museums, and get them to work together so that they can actually benefit as a community, not as a series of individual institutions. And that is something that regenerative design is trying to do. Yeah, do something with a minimum amount of material, lean start, make it last a long time and make it adaptable, give it a loose fit. And one way that I like to, I've been starting to think about the way that we can design things is not to, this is a picture of a cell in biology, but basically if you imagine our projects that we're working on, which used to have a big fat red line around them saying, right, you work inside that red line and that's your responsibility. Nowadays, I think it's much better model is to say it's a permeable thing and we're connected to everybody else through the boundaries of our world, everything that we can see, but we're connected to everything else and we can't dissociate ourselves from it. Last thing to say is, if you don't like maths, but you like scribbling, engineering and architecture is a great thing for you. So these are some of my sketchbooks. They just got scribbles in, basically. I never look at them again, hardly, apart from if I'm giving a talk. But this is a way of learning how to think, and just sort of you try something. If it doesn't work, you turn the page over, have another go, turn the page over. It's just a way of designing. If you love that sort of thing, again, architecture engineering is a great thing for you. So may the force be with us, young and not so young, speaking as a not so young person. That's it. Apologies for the false start.
No problem. Absolutely fantastic. And you brought the beginning and you connected it. Sorry, you brought the end and you connected it to the beginning with the sketchbook, because Kat was really on about sketching, which I say to young people, sketching is a way that if you did maths, it would be working out down the side. If you did English, it'd be writing out your thoughts. But people are scared to sketch because they think there's a right and a wrong way. And this happens in education every single day. And because of the way the educational system is set up, kids have been conditioned now to, if you do something wrong, you're a failure. And if you got to do it, you got to do it perfect. Whereas, as you've just shown in your sketchbook, Chris, that the sketches don't necessarily represent what the final product may even eventually look like. And it's about what all three of you have been saying, is to be experimental in what your ideas are, to be fluid in your ideas. I think have you guys got any questions? Or, I mean, I've got one question just set here, and it says, how can we be innovative? Just if you had one thing to say to young people, what would you say to them? How to be innovative? Because it's a global thing, as you were saying in your presentation. Heba, do you want to start with that one, or Kat, or Chris, whoever wants to start?
I can start, and I think Chris touched on this, but it's encouraging young people to not pigeonhole themselves very early on. I think at school, you specialize when you're 18 because you restrict yourself to 3 subjects, and often you're kind of pressured to pick subjects that all speak to each other or related to each other. And it's creating, and I see this with a lot of my peers, it's like creating this cohort of young professionals in every industry who are either going through like massive existential quarter-life crises because they're just doing one thing all the time, or people who are like very specialized and not really engaging with other disciplines and other professionals. And I think if we're to solve this climate crisis, like social crisis, loneliness, like all of these issues, we need different professionals and different people to speak to each other, and there needs to be a lot more cross collaboration. Innovation will only happen if you're able to think, beyond the red line boundary. So I think it's about honoring and respecting and giving time to those hobbies and those other things that you like to do beyond the one career you decide to pursue at university.
Who's going to take it up next?
Yeah, I'd just add to what Heba was saying, really, around don't ever lose sight of that curiosity. I think that's a big part of engineering. It's that curious nature and the questioning. So you don't take things at face value. You think about things in a slightly different angle. And it's that accepting that sometimes we will fail and we will make a mistake, but we'll learn from that. And it's having that strength of conviction to try it and think about ways of doing things differently, and never lose sight of what it is that is your passion and is part of who you are. And, you know, if it's why you got into engineering, you want to make a difference, you want to have an impact. So never lose sight of that, and always maintain that curiosity and questioning and thinking outside the box.
Mine's to go traveling, and not to the beach much, and not to replicas of Houston or North America that have been built all over the world, but, you know, go to places where you have buildings and people and societies that are rooted in the place that they come from, you know. So, and it's becoming harder and harder to find them, but, you know, up in the foothills of the Himalayas, or down by the rivers in Borneo, or, you know, wherever, somewhere where you can experience nature, and you can experience the landscape, and you can experience the weather, and you can experience how people live under those circumstances. And what's amazing is, I think that we're quite a lot of what we're doing design-wise is going full circle and taking us back to being better connected with the landscape and better connected with our environment, rather than separating ourselves from it. And so certainly to open yourselves up to those different ways of living gives you a perspective that you can then translate. So when you're then designing something for yourself, you're able to bring that sense of occupying the land rather than just doing something to it, which I think is, so I would go traveling. And it can just be, you know, you just go to Wales and go up a mountain, you know, that's pretty good as well.
Thank you. Taking all of your PowerPoints or presentations into consideration, if we focus on sustainability and taking into consideration that 2030 is going to be missed, and 2040 most probably will be missed, 2050 might occur, how do you think you could infuse young people to think seriously? And I know that you focused on it a bit, Chris, in your presentation, but this is one planet, and we have one last chance maybe to help and save. What do you think in your disciplines you could extract, say, one or two things that can make a real change to young people and infuse them to get into your area of expertise?
I think it's about making young people understand that it's not just like an environmental. I think environmental justice is not just an environmental issue, it's also a social justice issue, and it's also a racial justice issue. And I think by getting young people to understand that, you know, by meeting climate targets, we're not saying we need to continue the way the world it is now. We need to transform it entirely into somewhere where it's just for all of us, makes it a lot more relatable, because I think a lot of young people feel disconnected from the climate crisis because they feel like it doesn't, maybe it doesn't serve us, or, you know, it feels so far away, or I don't, I feel like I have no case for change, I can't really make an impact. But if you're telling them, no, we're trying to completely transform the world and create a just one and make it relatable, I think that makes young people want to engage a lot more and be more invested into it.
Yeah, I think it's the one step at a time. It's actually the tangible things that you can show that are making small inroads. And if we continue in this vein, you know, we can't control everything, but we can have an impact. And we all have a responsibility, and we can leave a legacy in what we do and how we do it. And to be a big part of that is quite exciting. And it's, you know, to look back at and see what you've achieved and see you've done things differently that are really going to help making those inroads in looking at sustainability. There's so much that we need to do, and we individually, we're not going to control it all, but if we work together as a collective and we all take that responsibility and do our bit to try and change things and do things that are going to help the future survival and shape the planet and make it what we want it to be, then we've got an opportunity and they can be part of that.
Well, the simple answer is that, you know, from the point of view of resources, if you're an engineer, every year you're responsible for something like, it depends what sort of engineer you are, but let's say about 500 times the amount of carbon that an individual person in a regular family is responsible for. So your impact is disproportionate. It's just off the scale by comparison with what regular people who aren't engineers or designers can do. You know, going vegan saves you half a ton to a ton of carbon a year. Most engineers are responsible for 5,000 tons of carbon a year through the things they design. So if you can just reduce that by 10% or 20% or 30% or 50%, you make a massive impact. That's the first one. And I think that the other one is to I actually think that as time goes by, and it's going to happen much sooner than we probably imagine, that the things that we as engineers and architects will be focusing on are things that human beings do best, not things that can be done best by a machine. And those include understanding the purpose of what we're doing, you know, why we're doing something, you know, defining the values that we're going to use when we're designing something, what's important, what's not important, and focus and getting much better at that rather than just letting somebody else define it for us and use the old-fashioned science response, which, well, we're just scientists, we just wait, we do the research, we let somebody else work out what to do with it. I think for engineers practicing and architects practicing, we will be increasingly required to take responsibility for what we're doing and not to leave it to somebody else to define it for us, because sometimes those people, the people who define it for us might be the Amazons and the Googles of the world, who may have an agenda or the Trumps of the world, who might have a completely different mindset or set of values or purposes to the ones that we might have and society might have that we're trying to design for.
Thanks very much. I'm just going to quickly see if you could see the screen, because it refers back to what you said about traveling. This was a book, I don't know if you could, no, it's not sharing. It's basically, it's Daniel Lifskin quote from his book, which said, could you see that screen? No? No. All right then. In Daniel Lifskin's book, it basically said to be well, here it is. He said how to be an architect. Go to school, he crosses it out. Drafting tools, he crosses it out. Building codes, he crosses it out. Fashion and architecture, he crosses it out. Travel, read books, and I add my end to it, be a DJ. So I'll see if I can pull that up. But I'm nowhere fast running out of time. So as a question that's been fired in here, Chris is talking about thinking 360 degrees, but is there barriers within the profession itself? as well as most probably the educational establishment is being educated in the way which in turn stops young people from working around this area. Did you get that? Anyone?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'd say is, I mean, just a sort of brief thing is that the education establishment is roughly 50 years out of date at university, and there, with honourable exceptions, and maybe including Bath. Let's hope. But the educational establishment is geared around research, very specialised. And most of the problems that we're trying to deal with now are sort of wicked problems. They're very complex, they have multi-stakeholders, multi-interest groups, multi-everything. And so I think that the educational model needs to recognize that and to stop obsessing about things, as I said, that can be done by computers. Like quite a lot of the mathematics is able to be done now by a machine, but the things relating to why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, and all of that interrelated contextual awareness. What happens to the natural world when you decide to pave over the area outside a building? Why? You know, because somebody thinks paving is interesting. You know, you kill off everything that lives there. You know, that sort of stuff, and all the water then disappears into the drains, which then have to get flooded, which then chuck sewage into the river. It's all connected together, and I think that we have to think of it as a series of overlapping systems, not a series of individual specialisms. And as soon as the educational establishment gets to that point, I think we'd be in business. So obviously, we're trying to change that. So overlapping systems, I think, is the thing we've got to get to.
Also, it's clear that loads of cultural institutions are starting to fill that gap that schools are not filling. So like, for example, we've been working with the Design Museum. There's also the V&A. They're kind of curating a lot of also Open City. Like there are loads of these programs that are giving young people the opportunity to explore or like, yeah, have that kind of 360 vision beyond their school curriculum, because there are loads of gaps. And even, yeah, like Civic as well, like loads of the outreach work that you do is, again, it's kind of just filling that gap that a lot of schools are struggling or not able to do.
Yeah, I think that's it, Heba. It's keeping that message and providing those opportunities to fill in those gaps. So where we can, supporting different initiatives to really keep that message going, and the collaboration is really key. And I think the more we spread that message, the more it becomes part of the everyday norm, and people understand that that is part of what we need to do to take it forward.
Personally, I think you're right, Chris, about the education establishment is stuck in some bygone era. And that's because we are governed by people with privilege. And the people with privilege, unfortunately, think that their way is the right way. I mean, and unfortunately, what they do is they exclude, and I think on one of your presentations, you said who should be in the room. Well, everybody should be in the room who's a stakeholder in society. But this education establishment over the last 13 years has been manipulated by a government that has wanted to put creativity into the private sector. So subsequently, since 2013 or 2012, 50% of design and technology lessons have disappeared out of school through this thing called Progress 8. So what we're getting is a sort of Victorian idea of maths, English, etc., should be the things that should be taught. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I've seen a couple of questions. This is one for Heba. what is the name of your friend that does collages and architectural visions you shared earlier?
I'm going to put her website in the chat, but her name's Rayanne El-Nayal, and she's co-founder of Space Black. So I'm going to share her page with everyone.
Lovely. And there's another one. Hello, and this is from Philippa. It says, hello, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'd like to know if any of your panelists have worked with professional school students in the age range from 16 to 24 to 20 rather, that have had low academic performances and are led to professional schools that are geared towards construction. I think that's the one for you, Kate, is it?
We've not worked with, we've worked with Football Beyond Borders, which worked with young children who have been excluded from school, who are or on the verge of exclusion. And yeah, that was really interesting, because once you give them the space to be able, and we spend a lot of time on the icebreakers and really try to like unpack, understand, like hold space for everyone. And then the quality of work that they produce is incredible, and the amount of engagement and the energy is fantastic. And they often leave like really interested and really excited, and then you have to try to give them alternatives that are not professional schools, because their personalities, they might be neurodiverse, they might, struggle with traditional institutions. So you have to try and find like apprenticeship options, or just, alternative routes into the profession that aren't, strictly academic. So I think that's where there could definitely be a lot more work done. Yeah,
we've looked at doing some work with young people that have gone through the care system, and they get to the age of 18 and suddenly their structure disappears, and it's looking at how we can support and encourage those people to stay within an apprenticeship system, and get them into a career and a profession that's really going to support them. So there are different charities that we're looking at and establishments to support people through that way. And I think it is a really key thing, particularly around the young adult stage, in really providing that support and that opportunity to give a pathway to people to get into a profession and really help them through that.
Thanks very much. We've got a couple of minutes left. I mean, one of the things that I've floated, and me and Victoria floated, is that every single practice should align itself to a school, whether it be an engineering or architecture practice. And if you did that, and you did some of the programs that you displayed earlier on, Kat, I'm sure we could uplift the young people who feel not connected to the mainframe, or who are hard to reach people. Because when you do programs are really easy to get loads of people who go to art galleries and everything else, kids and everyone in there. But the hard to reach ones, that is where the challenge lie. And that's where the challenge lies. But I know we've got 1 minute left. Could somebody say one thing that represents their passion, their feeling, in the minute that we've got left? Anybody first?
I'm just gonna say, relax. I think it's about, just, it's actually fun, and you can, it's serious fun. There you are. Maybe that's the best expression.
I was going to say joy. That's the one thing that summarizes for me, just finding the joy in it, and like having that propel you to do the work.
Absolutely, Heba. Yeah, it's about having that passion and follow your passion.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I would add to, I do yoga, and it's finding your inner self. And I feel that if you can come to terms with who you are, what you are, where you are, you can always elevate yourself to, or put yourself somewhere else. And it's about focus and most of all, love the person that you are. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. And with all of those attributes, I think that you'll become very successful within your own self. Thank you very much for absolutely fantastic panel today. I don't know when the next one is, but oh yes, next after in the winter. But Victoria, thank you very much, and everybody who took part and who's building this absolutely amazing educational platform for people to feed in. Please spread the word. Please give it all your heart, joy, and soul. Have a fantastic evening. I think that's going to be it. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.